Grover Mitchell, you've been in and out of the Basie Band, but mostly with it for about 18 years, so you have been living with this institution. How would you describe it?
Oh, wow, that's far too complex question to describe. It's a way of life. You know what I mean? It's a family. And I came back about 9 months ago, mostly because after you spend as much time as most of us do with this band, this gets to be your family circle, more or less, you know, and you always miss them when you go away. And I was very successful on the studio scene. I was on staff at NBC in Hollywood for 4 years, but this is still, you know, a very hard adjustment to get away from the band, and I guess I never did spiritually.
It must have a certain spiritual, indefinable...
Well, one of the reasons, I guess, why the band sounds like it does, you know, it's not a band in the sense that other bands are bands. We're all friends. There has been very seldom anybody, you know, a rough edge, a person that didn't fit in here. You know, there's been a few, but we were generally just a bunch of friends. Even when I was away from the band, I'd find out where the guys were, and I'd call up certain ones and shock them. They'd be in some motel way in the middle of Kentucky or Arkansas, or they might call me, you know, or they might be having a party in Zurich, Switzerland, something like that, and 4 o'clock in the morning they'd call me up, you know, and wake me up, and you know, and to be sure that I knew what was going on, and that's the way it always is. It's kind of something that you can't get away from, you know. And the old man is the heart of the whole thing, you know. And just a reflection of who he is.
Yes, and we might talk about who he is as you observe him. Speaking of Bill Basie.
Yeah, well, that's, again, a very complex question. I've noticed over the years and being away from the band for a while that people do think that he's some very simple little guy that there's not much to, but all of the complexities of the band are very representative of who he is, and he's a very complex man, very much better musician than people think he is, very much better piano player than people think he is. He's very much more than, you know, this understatement, it's social understatement that's kind of intended on his part. He's far more to him than is shown. There has been a few times, like, we would be able to feel it better than maybe the public can, but maybe Basie would be away from the band, or maybe somewhere on a radio or a television interview, and we'd have to start maybe an hour early. Well, naturally, we know all the arrangements and everything, and it would sound all right, and all the notes would be right or something. But then when Basie walks in, the whole thing changes. It settles down, you know, and then it becomes Count Basie's band. He has a very big personal impact on this thing. I mean, it's very subtle, and there's nothing that nobody can get on a radio interview and thoroughly explain to you.
In some, if you could put it in a statement of, say, one sentence, 10 paragraphs long, how would you describe this experience? What has it done for you?
Well, you've asked me a very complex question, and you're asking for a very simple answer, but all of us here, although I guess we add to what this band is, you know what I mean, but this band has made us who we are, too. I mean, there's a different mark on us when we go out of here. We have a different value when we go from here. I mean, if you hadn't been through the band, there's a lot of people that wouldn't even look at you or listen to you, but once you put a few years in here, and there's a confidence that everybody has in you. They figure if you could survive the band and you stayed here for any length of time, that you must know something about what you're doing. So it has contributed, I mean, to my life. Maybe I should say everything as far as music is concerned. But you see, naturally I have to speak to you from a personal point of view. The band musically is a great deal of what I believe in. I am a big band musician. I've been through all kinds of groups. I've been through all kinds of studio bands. I've been through all kinds of small groups. I've been all kinds of tours with singers and everything. But I am a big band musician. And you know, there's something in this book that generally expresses everything that I believe in music. There's guys in here that I can sit down and I can really talk to on what I want to talk about musically. And that's very hard, you know.
It is hard to find that kind of preservation of music and people You don't find it in museums. You find paintings on the wall.
Yeah, that's why I say we're sitting here. We're trying to paint a picture of a lot of things that I'm sure a lot of people would like to know, but it's just something that words doesn't capture. Now, naturally, Basie's 76 years old, and there's going to come a time when he's going to say, "Well, the hell with it." As you notice, he's not walking that well or anything. In fact, I help him walk, but I intend to continue on. I'm going to have a band myself.
And that, of course, is a mark that the Basie experiences left on you.
You get a very good idea of what you want to do when you're here, if you stay here this long. You know what I mean? That don't mean that I'm going to walk out here and I'm going to try to duplicate everything that Basie does. As much as I love being in the band, or have loved being in the band, I don't agree with everything that happens here. There's a good deal of things here that I do disagree. But if you're honest, I think anything that you're on that if you are an honest man, you don't agree with everything that happens. But there's enough here that it gives me the musical substance that I do need. If that helps you any, that's just kind of how I feel.
How would you describe Bill Basie's leadership?
Well, that's it. His leadership is very subtle. It's not the supervisory kind of leadership or the great I am or anything. He's like a natural leader. I've always said that a natural leader is a man. He doesn't come out and tell you that I'm your boss or I'm your leader. You just have a tendency, and I'm a pretty stubborn man, you have a tendency to fall in line behind these people. And if you are a leader, you'll find that people will fall in line behind you kind of automatically, because it's the way you live, and you will usually represent a philosophy that these men who will follow you believe in. So that's what's happening here. Everybody kind of falls behind Basie. There's no great supervision. It's kind of a self-supervised thing. It's just kind of a thing you accept. You accept his leadership. It's a subtle. He's a very strong man. It doesn't seem like it. Everybody thinks he's a little simple, round, Santa Claus-looking man. That's not the case at all. He's a very complex man, and he is a leader.
Grover, thank you so much for taking time out on intermission here.
My pleasure.